Good evening, chat. Hello. What the heck is that? See weird headlights outside. Always makes you want to look. Anyways, good evening, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. It's Sunday, and let's talk about some football. And this is something that's been ever present. It's something a couple of you have repeatedly told me about, and I wanted to see kind of how this would develop. And excuse me, not a whole lot's happened with it. It's been kind of just sitting there. This is kind of a companion case to what's going on in the ACC, and I think this is just another great example of college football and college athletics. The mask has slipped all the way now. Now that the student athletes are making money, the student athletes are now able to make money. These guys are just now going headlong into doing whatever they want. And you see all the money that's being owed, the money they're squabbling over. It's not trivial. It's not trivial. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. The ESPN settlement was released today. Oh, well, I'll have to take a look at that. But this is something that's been going on. Yes, Ag, you brought it up a couple of times. And it's just, it's so funny. They kept on acting like, oh, this is all the scholarship. And now they're just like, yeah, whatever. Fuck you, pay me. So I do think it's very interesting in that regard. So we're going to get started on this. Blueberry says, I could go for some free bread at a restaurant with butter. Yes. Give me some of this delicious bread and the free tap water. Michelle, what are you looking at here? I'm on Ricada people time. Oof, that hurts. I need to cover Lincoln Riley. Yes, I do need to get on that. Yes, that is thoroughly started. Laney's therapy appointments ran long. Yes. Well, our therapist explained Laney's stress is here, and she needs to be able to accommodate much more stress. So we need to bring her stress levels, her tolerance up to here. So there's something we could do about that. But I'll have to make some phone calls. Maddie B says, what's the allure of poaching? Do people buy mounts? I'm talking about more of the poaching with, the poaching of why people hunt. Well, because they want to hunt what they can't get. So the allure of poaching is getting that animal you couldn't get for whatever reason. Whether it's out of season, you're hoping you could snake it now, or it's on a property you can't get to, so you go poach. I mean, that's kind of a normal thing. Thank you. Oh, excuse me there. Let's see what else we got. We're talking about poaching illegal immigrants. No, we're not talking about poaching. We're not poaching illegal immigrants. Oh, so Kat says you have no idea this lawsuit about is. Well, we're going to get into it. We are going to get into it. So here we go. This all goes back to two football conferences. If you for those of you guys who are not Americans, college football is a big deal. It's a big moneymaker. It's huge. It's huge. College football funds most athletic programs in many of the universities. College football is your moneymaker. The rest of them don't. Girls volleyball might make enough to survive, maybe. But almost everything gets paid for by the funds through college football. In many states, your highest paid government employee is the head coach of your, Ohio State, Utah State, Oregon State, the University of Oregon, insert wherever, is likely going to be one of your football coaches. Even in the federal government, for the service academies, Air Force, their coach makes a lot of money. Navy, their coach makes a lot of money. And those guys are not military members. They're civilians. And then you have, for example, Army this year. Army's tearing it up. Their coach is probably going to make some money coming up. It's not at all It's not at all uncommon. There's a lot of money at stake, television rights, the NCAA series of football games you could play on Xbox. Those guys, Reggie Bush is involved in that because he's going to, people are making, image, likeness, and name. There's all kinds of money at stake here. There's so much money at stake. Advertising rights, revenue. I mean, these conferences now have their own channels or networks. So you have like the Pac-12 network, the SEC network, the Big Ten network. Not just ESPN. I mean, there is the money that's coursing through college sports, primarily through football, is massive. The only thing that would compete is basketball, and really nobody gives a shit about basketball except for March, when you have March Madness. Other than that, nobody really cares about basketball. Olympic sports don't really make anything. Yeah. Really, other than basketball and football, there isn't really any money being made. There really isn't any money being made at all. Nevada Mavericks says Jimbo Fisher from Texas got a $70 million buyout. Yep. Yeah, there's so much money. So much money. Nick Saban raked in the cash. Yeah. I remember for the longest time, those guys could be awash in cash, but God forbid you're a student athlete and your cheeseburger, you got a burger with cheese on it. This is something that actually, and you guys may think I'm joking, the NCAA rules and regulations regarding recruiting athletes got to the point where you could offer them bagels, but you couldn't offer them cream cheese to put on the bagel because that would be an illegal enticement. It turned into a mockery of itself, and now it's starting to fall apart. And what better? These people deserve it. At the end of the day, these people deserve it. Yes, put it this way: Georgia has $1 billion athletic facility. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. And hold on here. Let's see here. Philip says nearly 80% of the NCAA's funding comes from the TV contract for the basketball tournament. Basketball tournament has a lot of money, but college football funds a lot of organizational activity. But yes, the NCAA itself, the governing body, they get so much money from the TV rights that they get to dole out. So what do we have? Well, we have two conferences in particular. We have the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Now, the Pac-12, the Pacific Athletic Conference, is on the Pacific Coast. And they typically had multiple teams in it, and they had a traditional roster of teams. Things, though, have not gone so well for the Pac-12. Right now, currently, there are only two teams. It's the Pac-12, right? Right now, it's only got two teams in it. You might say, Sean, what the heck do you mean there's only two teams in it? Literally, there are only two teams in the Pac-12 right now. It is a two-team conference. Oregon State University and Washington State University. Now, what happened? Well, there were a lot of teams in the Pac-12. And if you guys look at this list, these were teams that were in the Pac-12. So, if you look here, there's a bunch of teams that left. And if you'll notice, the date is 2024. So they had the University of Arizona, Arizona State, Berkeley, University of Colorado. Gone. And more teams in 2024 left. Stanford, UCLA, USC, University of Utah, and the University of Washington. And look where all these teams went. A bunch of them went to the Big Ten. Then you have a weird one. Stanford went to the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. A couple of them went to the Big 12. It's all about the money, chat. It's all about the money. So it's all about money for these guys. And they lost all their... And you know what? They got peeled off. These teams got poached. and they were allowed to leave. Now, what does the Pac-12 try to do in the meantime? Well, the Pac-12 recruited a bunch of teams, and they peeled off a couple different teams here. They peeled off a couple different universities: Boise State, Cal State at Fresno, also known as Fresno State, Colorado State, San Diego State, and Utah State. And notice they come from one place, the Mountain West Conference. Now, what's the Mountain West Conference? Well, the Mountain West Conference is here. So the teams at the Mountain West Conference are going to lose are Boise State, Utah State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State. But that means there's New Mexico. There is the Air Force Academy, Wyoming, Nevada. They have a lot of teams left. They don't but they're not swimming in teams right now. This is actually a bit of an issue for them. There's Colorado College. I mean, they've got they got San Jose State, but notice those are a bunch of teams that are leaving. Those are a bunch of teams that are leaving there, and that's a problem. That is a big problem. Because what do you do with these teams? And if you look at those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They had 12 teams that are now going to be down. They're losing 5. So the Pac-12 has said, come on over, guys. Well, the Mountain West knew this was going to happen. So as part of things that were set up, and this goes back to a scheduling agreement. If you guys don't understand what scheduling agreements are. So a scheduling agreement, a lot of schools will schedule out games that are not necessarily in their conference ahead of time. If you guys have never seen that before, it's a very common thing. And there are teams that have various schedules out there. And we'll use Ohio State as an example. I don't want to use them, but we will use them as an example. So this is Ohio State's schedule for the year 2024. The University of Akron is not in the Big Ten. That's an Ohio team. Western Michigan is not in the Big Ten. Marshall's not in the Big Ten. Now, there are other teams normally you deal with. Like traditionally, Oregon was not in the Big Ten. But what about these teams out here, your non-conference schedules? For example, some years Ohio State has played Texas. Well, these schools 3-4 years out start signing agreements saying, we'll play 2 or 3 games with you starting in 2027 and 28 and 29 because we're both powerhouses. We want the draw. We want the TV revenue. We want the money. We want a challenge. But these schools down here are the opposite. Marshall sucks, Western Michigan sucks, and Akron sucks. So what do you do with these? Well, these schools are desperate for money. And Ohio State will come over to them and wave a couple $1 million in front of their face and say, let us kick your ass. And Akron looks at their schedule and says, okay, cool. Marshall says, okay, cool. That's what happens here. This happens all over the country in every conference. Now, this happens here, but you also have cross-conference play. And teams will work on, sometimes conferences will enter into contracts. And in the case of the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, they signed a contract. Okay, and in that contract, they had special rules. And one of those was poaching fees. Now, it's roughly about $18 million per school. That's kind of the average of what it costs, but some schools cost more than the others. But the scheduling agreements, if Pac-12 pulled a team away from the Mountain West, you had to pay the Mountain West Conference for that. Now, what also happened was Mountain West went to the Pac-12 and said, look, you guys don't really have any teams left in your conference. We'll help you out, but it's going to cost you. So not only are there poaching fees potentially, because the Mountain West trying to protect what they have, but they're now making the Pac-12 pay a ton of money to play any other teams. They charged $14 million to play 6 games each. But that's where the cost of the poaching penalty came in. So the Pac-12 went ahead and poached these teams. The Pac-12 said, fuck this. We need these teams. We're going to die. So they started poaching the teams. They went boom, 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 boom. And to be fair, these are the teams that are worth of shit right now in the Mountain West. So they added them. And those teams broke ranks with the Mountain West. And the Pac-12 went ahead and preemptively filed a lawsuit. And they challenged it on a couple of different grounds. And we're going to get into that now. And they're doing it in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California. And it's a Pac-12 versus the Mountain West. So they point out that they are seeking a complaint and declaratory judgment against the Mountain West Conference. And they're arguing that the contract is invalid and unenforceable. And this talks about the scheduling agreement and the poaching penalty. Basically, they want to invalidate the contract they were signed, and they're going to make arguments that it wasn't fair for them to sign. Amateur Iconoclast is surprised they didn't take UNLV as well. Well, yeah. But also, change your avatar. It's going to be hard to catch you now. So what is the story behind this? Well, they're arguing, the Pac-12's arguing it's an anti-competitive and unlawful poaching penalty. It inhibits competition for school members in collegiate athletics. And they're arguing that this is an exorbitant punitive monetary fee for engaging in competition. The Mountain West is imposing this penalty when the Pac-12 was desperate to schedule football games for its 2 remaining members that had little leverage to reject this naked restraint on competition. Now, part of their argument here is that it's obvious to tell we had no choice. We were bent over a barrel here, and it wasn't fair they did this to us. They were taking advantage of our poor situation. Now, a lot of you might say, well, shit happens if you aren't in a strong position in a contract. And that is one theory to argue. But this one's a little bit different in that regard. So they argue that the Pac-12 is one of the preeminent NCAA Division I collegiate athletic conferences. It has a storied history spanning over a century. Yes. And they, last year, 10 member schools precipitously announced their departures to join rival athletic conferences. Yes, it basically killed it. Now, they do point this out. Schools departing conference to join other conferences is nothing new. It's happened for decades. And it's true. Happens all the time. They point out these departures only left 2 teams, Oregon State and Washington State. And in the wake of the mass exodus caused by fierce competition for rival conferences who had more money, the Pac-12 only had months to salvage the season and create opportunities for its 1,000 student athletes to compete with the other schools. I'm sorry, I almost said slaves, but they are student athletes. They say the Mountain West Conference is a competitor college athletics conference that includes member schools from the same Western U.S. region, which the Pac-12 has historically competed for member schools. So in December 2023, They reached an agreement with the Pac-12 to schedule football games against Oregon State and Washington State for the 2024-2025 season. This season. The scheduling agreement, and they exploited the Pac-12's weakened position. And they said, knowing the Pac-12 was running out of time and short on leverage, Mountain West only charged them super competitive, and they're trying to argue egregiously competitive prices, more than normal. Over $14 million for these guys to play 6 games each. But it also forced the Pac-12 to accept the poaching penalty provision. And it's designed to limit the Pac-12's capacity to compete for years into the future, even after the agreement expires. Now, notice that this is actually from this. If at any time prior to the 2-year anniversary, the expiration or termination of this agreement, the Pac-12 makes an offer to any Mountain West member institution other than an offer to all of them. So basically, you can't peel them off one by one. You either have to buy them all out. To join the Pac-12 as a member affiliate or as an affiliate member, which any institution from Mountain West accepts or announces that it will accept. So notice, we're going to accept this, or they're saying if we think about it, which if the Mountain West can convince them not to do it, they're still going to penalize the Pac-12. The Pac-12 shall pay liquidated damages in the form of a termination fee. This sets forth a series of escalating fees ranging from $10 million to $137.5 million, depending on the number of schools that join the Pac-12. And they argue the penalty is an unlawful horizontal restraint on competition. It restricts member schools from only one competitor to the Pac-12. And they say, not coincidentally, the Pac-12 is the most logical competitor for members of the Mountain West join, given the geographical proximity and makeup of the universities. And they point out for years prior, Mountain West schools had approached the Pac-12 about joining the conference. And the funny part is, the Pac-12 routinely told them to go fuck themselves because they were little people. They didn't care. That's actually the very funny part about this. Yeah, $137.5 million is a lot of money. But if you notice, there's a problem with all of that. All these schools wanted to join, and Pac-12's like, fuck off. Well, now they do need these people. So what happens from here? Well, they argue the penalty was designed by Mountain West to stifle competition, imposing an artificial barrier to entry for members of the Pac-12. The poaching penalty improperly restricts and limits the competitive offers Pac-12 can make to the Mountain West members because it places a tax on that. In this way, poaching limits the ability of Mountain West schools to benefit from competition among athletic conferences, placing one of their most logical options at a severe competitive disadvantage. The penalty thus functions in the same manner as a no poach, no hire, and non-solicitation agreement that have been declared unlawful in this district and around the country because they suppress competition. And that is true. There are many times no poaching, no hiring agreements, non-solicitation agreements, non-competition agreements, non-competes. Many of those get ruled to be unlawful or unconstitutional. It happens all the time. They have to be you have to make them as narrow as possible in scope, and they can't last forever. Now, there are times where that does happen, though. If you have access to special elite trade secrets, there are times where you might be precluded from working for the other guy. Those are very, 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 very rare, though. They point out there's no legitimate justification for the poaching penalty. Well, they put it there, you signed it. In fact, Mountain West is already seeking to impose tens of millions of dollars in exit fees on schools that depart from the conference. To the extent Mountain West would suffer any harm from the departure of its member schools, these exit fees provide more than sufficient compensation. So it's interesting. They're trying to shake down the Pac-12, but then they're also shaking down the schools that leave. They say there's no reason why the school's new conference should be responsible for compensating Mountain West or why such penalties should apply to only one competitor conference, the Pac-12. The purpose in imposing the penalty was to reduce competition by the Pac-12 and weaken the Pac-12 financially. The penalty is duplicative, unnecessary, and entirely punitive. Now, here's the thing. When you think about it, yes, it is. But here's the deal. You guys signed an agreement. That's what the Mountain West, they haven't responded yet. They're working on a response. That's what they're going to say. You freely contracted with us. It's not our fault you're on hard times. It's not our fault everybody bailed on you. You guys have to suck it up. Life sucks, then you die, is what what Mountain West is certainly going to say about this. They're going to argue this is nonsense. We shouldn't have to be dealing with this. Hutch, yeah, no, I saw that. I saw the Benchmade one. I'm going to look at that. So, in a way, I mean, I understand what Pac-12 is saying, but I also understand what Mountain West is going to say. You guys freely signed a contract. You guys were fucking desperate. Well, deal with it. Their argument's going to be SUFA. Yes, Tianena is right. SUFA football, SUFA. Pretty much. I'm sure Iconoclast saying, so the Pac-12 joining it and renaming it the Mountain West is out of the question? Yeah. The Pac-12 is not going to do that. They don't want to give up all the money and the rights they have. I mean, this is about money at the end of the day, chat. They don't give a shit about college football and college sports. These guys exist to make money. It's a business. They're a business, man. This is all about money. They don't care. So no, they're not going to give that up because then other people are going to make money. The commissioners of the Pac-12 don't want to give up their paychecks. All the muckety mucks in the Pac-12 don't want to give up their paychecks because guess what? When these conferences merge, guess what? You don't need duplicate management. It all gets condensed. So then you don't need duplicate spots. Everybody is about money and controlling your fiefdoms. At the end of the day, that's what a lot of people fight over. So it's not a surprise. It is not a surprise in that regard. Cash, just remind me which conference Oregon and Washington are in. Well, Oregon's in the Big Ten. What's Washington? Washington's in the Big Ten as well. So, yeah. So you guys just see it's all a scam. It's all about money. They really don't give a shit about anything else. They really don't. Okay, so here we go. We got a little bit more to talk about, guys, and we'll take a break in a minute here. It's not a super huge lawsuit, so we're going to keep going for a minute. They also argue that enforcing the poaching penalty threatens the Pac-12's ability to remain a viable competitor. Under NCAA bylaws, top-tier conferences are required to have at least 8 member schools. When the Pac-12 suffered its loss of teams, the NCAA afforded them a 2-year grace period to operate below the 8-school minimum that will expire in 2026. If the Pac-12 pays the poaching penalty, it will have diminished resources to rebuild and maintain its status as a leading conference. Notice they're not really worried about, think of the poor kids or, oh no, we're going to lose all our money. No. That's what they're arguing. Chat, that's what they're arguing here. It's like, no, we're going to lose our monies. Our shekels are going out the window. They're not worried about the student athletes. They argue the penalty would weaken the Pac-12 as a competitor in numerous other ways by depleting vital resources needed by member institutions to compete at the highest level of college athletics. Notwithstanding the draconian and unlawful poaching penalty, the Pac-12 remains steadfast in its commitment to regrow in a fair, competitive manner to best serve its member schools and its student athletes. Notice we finally see student athletes popping up in here. We finally know who they're caring about. Athletes, yes. Oh, yes. Will anybody think of the children? Look how far we got for them to think of the children. 9 paragraphs in, and they did. Yes. Is this about foosball, Bobby Boucher? Yes, it is. It's always about foosball. Oh, okay. To that end, on September 12th, 2024, so just recently, about 2 months ago, the Pac-12 accepted applications from 4 current Mountain West members to join the Pac-12 Conference beginning in 2026 and 2027, which is when the Mountain West's current media rights agreement will expire. See, chat? See? This is about money. It's always about money. It's not about the schools. It's not about the kids. It's about media rights. Because guess what they can do now? Those schools could go to the Pac-12 and say, hey, buddy, you want us to join. What are we going to get out of the media rights contract you're going to negotiate? How much do we get to wet our beak on this a little bit? There's always an argument here. It's always about money. It's always about the money. The Mountain West demanded the Pac-12 pay $43 million in liquidated damages, citing the penalty. Now, they accepted an application. They didn't say they were going to do anything about it. On September 23rd, the Pac-12 admitted a 5th member, Utah State, beginning of the 2026 and 7 season. The Mountain West has signaled that it intends to collect or withhold from distributions exit fees from its departing members, which that's a separate issue. The Mountain West may end up breaching contracts with their member schools. That may not be allowed. Who knows about that? That's a separate issue for a separate day because that's the Mountain West members and the Mountain West itself. Now, they argue the Mountain West's excessive and punitive penalties violate state and federal law. They violate California's unfair competition law, basic principles of contract law, and antitrust law. Now, they argue first, it is a per se violation of antitrust law because it is a naked horizontal agreement in the restraint of trade. The penalty weakens the Pac-12 in competition with member schools, diminishes the compensation available for schools interested in joining the Pac-12, and reduces the Mountain West members' options for mobility. On the flip side of the coin, the penalty does nothing to increase the amount of college football played, which is the purpose of the scheduling agreement. Now, they're arguing in a separate argument here. This agreement, this penalty, doesn't affect the ability to schedule teams. And that's a very valid argument. This penalty has nothing to do with scheduling. It's about picking teams off. So, let's see here. Hold on. You guys are... Let's see. Now, they say second, the poaching penalty is unfair and unlawful under the unfair competition law in California because its only purpose is historic competition by locking up member schools, preventing them from leaving for a competitor. They argue third, the penalty is unenforceable because the liquidated damages it threatens are excessive and bear no relationship to the amount the Mountain West Conference may be harmed from the loss of its member schools. Nor could it, since Mountain West is already seeking tens of millions of dollars in exit fees from the other schools already that more than compensate them. And that's a fair argument that this is a bit of unjust enrichment. If the Mountain West is going to double dip and get paid, the Mountain West gets paid from both. Then the Mountain West has $100 million it can play with. And it's like, that's not what it's meant to have. Damages are meant to make you whole, not enhance you. The Pac-12 therefore seeks a declaratory judgment. The penalty is invalid and unenforceable, and any other relief the court deems proper. So it's interesting. There's no whiteboard in this one. It's pretty obvious. We got a bunch of things here we need to catch up on, chat. Sir Marhouse for $4.99 says the Bucks are number 2. Yeah, they are. 4 or 5 of the top 5 is from the Big Ten, and Michigan is not bowl eligible. This has been a very fun and interesting season. Yeah. Har. Oh, that's disgusting. It is disgusting. But yes. Oh, yeah. Yep. The amateur iconoclast says for $5, can't have the embarrassing late season loss to an unranked Oregon State if you're no longer in the same conference with Oregon State. Yes, and that was a big issue for Oregon is the Civil War. That's what they call the I believe that's what they call the rivalry between Oregon and Oregon State. And if you guys are for our European viewers, in many states you have, for example, the University of Oregon, and then you had Oregon State University. And those were typically a rivalry game, a pretty big rivalry game. But not in every state. For example, Ohio University and Ohio State University isn't really a competition because Ohio State basically would just flatten Ohio every time. But there are states where it's a big deal. And yes, for a school like Oregon, fighting Oregon State every year is a very dangerous thing because they do lose it routinely enough because they're fairly competitive. MLS David over at Making Law Simple saying, Sean, please don't ban me from your chat. My antics are welcomed here. Yes, they are. Sir Marho says, I would love to stay up to watch, missing my football talk here in Bongland, but it's 2 a.m. and I'm dying. Good night, chat. Well, good night to you, man. I hope you're doing well over there. Keep plugging away. Epic Fantasy is saying, real talk for $5 Australian dollar dues, by the way. Saying, real talk, is Rekieta going to get charged over the Aaron Google account privacy invasion? I mean, he very likely could. Very, very likely could. I think it all depends on what he has. Because I'm sure the police are going to investigate it. But, you know, if he's got all the things he has, it sounds like possibly including like credit card information and bank accounts, things like that. Yeah, a lot of that stuff's not going to be good to have if it's not yours and you're not meant to have it. You know, you don't just get to walk up to a computer that's logged in and go, oh, well, they left it logged in. I guess that means I can just log into everything. I mean, think about it. Like if you left your banking open online on a computer, can I just walk up and transfer money out of it? Well, you didn't. You should have closed it. Otherwise, I get to walk around and root in it. No, you would never accept that. So either way, it's still not a good look. It makes you look like a piece of shit to the prosecution. And as I said before, when you're trying to, your wife's trying to pursue criminal charges against the guy and you are clearly fucking with him on this scale, remember what I said, it doesn't make you look like the good guy. It doesn't make you look like the good guy. It makes you guys look like the bad guys. So that's how you get charges dismissed. If you're trying to help your wife, you're not helping her. And then EDW Raptor gifted 10 memberships. Try to poach off people like that. And he's like, well, we'll bring Grays into the fold. So thank you, EDW. Thank you for your support and your generosity. Amateur Iconoclast says it's the Power 4 and the Group of 6 now. Roughly, yeah. And then Tom Riddle. Tom, I don't think I've ever seen you here before, but good to see you. Saying officially there's no more Power 4 or 5 conferences. There are 5 automatic bids for the 5 conference champions. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. The playoffs, it all turns into a mess. But, yeah, there's only so much you can do with that. I don't think that's a disagreement there. Carla Vegas says, teach your kids not to be like Rekieta. Well, that's good advice. Arcade Outpost says I think this is meant to be in Trump voice. We love Sean, don't we, folks? We have the best Sean. The best Sean. The smartest Sean. Better than all the other Seans. Shredder S07 this is a very good point. The Pac-12 is going to lose money in the next media deal, even if they add a bunch of mid-major teams. Further their status as a non-power conference. Sure. But here's what happens. if they try to negotiate with only 2 teams, guess what happens? They're fucking done. So they have to. I mean, it's stemming the bleeding. I'm sure at some point they would like to repoach big names again, but it's kind of like you got to start all over again. You put a bunch of scrubs in your conference and start building from there. Stephen Cooper's been a member for 11 months. Says, do you think Nick gave Ralph the link to Aaron's court stream? No, I think pretty sure it was like available for anybody to find. Well, actually, you know what? Ralph called the court and they gave it to him, which is perfectly fine. Like there was no funny business in that regard. And like I said, I still think it's bullshit Ralph got charged with this. I still think it's wrong that he got charged with it. But no, there was no funny business in Ralph getting the link. I even said it at the time. When Ralph's like, yeah, I called ahead and got it. Like, that was pretty good. Like, good job on Ralph getting that done. Because otherwise, I thought it was just not being streamed. So, like I said, good on him. Tom Rill says the Pac-12 is acting like a bunch of crybaby 5-star dummies. No enforcement on the contract. And I think it's a very big problem for them at this point. Yeah, you signed a contract when you were weak, but that's what happens, man. You can't do that. Yes. Nick Naylor says, actually, yes, device security is a customer responsibility. I'm not talking about the bank refunding money. I'm talking about the idea of, well, why can't I just transfer money around? It's not your thing, and you know it's not your thing. Yes, banks are not liable due to customer irresponsibility via device security. I decline those disputes on the regular. Nick, I agree with you. I'm just saying, if you left your laptop open and I walked up to it and transferred money to myself, or I started fucking around in your accounts, it started sending your information everywhere, that's not legal for me to do, even though you left it open. That's all I'm arguing about. Whether or not the bank has a right to be involved or the parties have to be liable for things is a separate matter. I'm just saying, in general, you don't go run around blasting people's shit all over the place. But yes, you are correct. If you leave your computer open and somebody starts transferring money around, your bank's not likely to cover it. So, Challenger Pistols is Ultimate Sean. Yes. Yes. Yes, I have the biggest Sean. The biggest Sean. Everybody loves our Sean. No one has a bigger Sean. Oh, gosh. So, we're going to keep going from here, though. So, and they talk about the parties, guys. This part, we're going to be able to skip through real quick. They're both NCAA Division I conferences. They compete in the FBS division, the country's highest level of college football, if you weren't aware. They both historically include and geographically include Western United States football teams. Basically from, as the Mountain West implies, the Mountain West. They put on plaintiff PAC-12 is a California unincorporated nonprofit association. And yes, the Mountain West is also a nonprofit corporation. These are nonprofits, chat. Huh. It's almost like that's part of the reason why they can scam the way they scam. Just like the NFL. The NFL is a trade organization. And when you see them doing like wearing pink, those are all tax write-offs and things they do. These guys, once again, these are all rackets. It's all a racket, chat. It's all a racket. It's all a hustle for these people. It's all a hustle. All a hustle. Ainsley Hayes says, I need to open up a nonprofit. It's a way to hustle. It's a way to hustle. Now, what's the one thing here? Even though the Mountain West is in Colorado, they're all covered by the Ninth Circuit. But they're California and Colorado. So guess what? You have diversity jurisdiction. You can go to federal court for this. Because notice that's where they're starting here. So they have diversity jurisdiction. They bring this also as a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act, a federal statute. which automatically gets them in the federal court. But they have other ways. This is under the Sherman Act. They also bring up federal question jurisdiction, which means under federal law, we're asking a federal question. There's supplemental jurisdiction over the state law causes of action, which arise from the cases and controversies. The court has personal jurisdiction because Mountain West has sufficient minimum contacts with California. And that's merely, do you have contacts with the state of California and interacting with California, specifically the Northern District of California? And the big thing here is they contracted with the PAC-12, which is headquartered in California. And they said because of that, therefore, they transact business in California and avail itself to the form of the state. This is getting into civil procedure, guys, but these are things you will hear in a civil procedure issue. You know, minimum contacts. Are you availing yourself to the states, to the forum that you're in? So they keep going here. They address a substantial part of the acts occurred here in Contra Costa County. They argue that's where it happened because that's where the contracts were signed. They argue the Mountain West is both an inhabitant of the Northern District of California, as one of its school members is San Jose State University, but it also transacts business in Northern California. So they talk about multiple ways this works. So here are the allegations. And this is interesting because they have I don't know if this is proper when you have red footnotes. I don't know. Their local rules must allow that, but that's not generally something you do. But anyways, this is just the factual allegations here. The competition is robust and schools are moving from one conference to another. They talk about since 1978, when the modern era of NCAA Division I competition began, hundreds of schools have moved from one conference to another, many moving multiple times. And they put out in 2024 and 25, 23 schools joined a new conference from the one they had participated in the year before. 10 of them came from the Pac-12. So that's the funny part here. 10 of them came from the Pac-12. Now, they argue the schools benefit from membership in an athletic conference in a variety of ways. Well, okay, a conference enables its member schools to share resources, exert greater leverage in media and rights negotiations, and schedule games for schools, student athletes to compete against one another. The schools can figure this all out on their own. It helps weak schools, and the big schools help the weak schools. That's what this is at the end of the day. Student athletes likewise benefit from the membership and competition amongst all conferences as well. Being part of a conference can promote student athletes' professional prospects by matching them with well-suited competitors, increase the value of their name, image, and likeness rights, and expose them to new geographical markets and media opportunities. Notice no part of the student part is included in that. It's all about the money, chat. It's all about them shekels. It's not about you learning nothing. It's about you making money. It's all about you making money. Once again, it's so fucking funny. It's so fucking funny. So fucking ridiculous. So fucking ridiculous. It's all it's about at the end of the day. It's about goddamn money. I mean, we already knew that, but it's nice that they admit this without, they admit it, but they don't admit it. Isn't it so funny how they do that now? And now they make no bones about it. They say it without shame. So. Yes, no one cares about the student athlete. Yes. No one cares. And it's true. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So let's just keep going here. And they talk about the robust competition. It's common for conferences to approach school that offers or vice versa. They talk about the Pac-12. It boasts a storied history and reputation. Founded in 1915, the Pac-12 is dedicated to developing the next generation of leaders by championing excellence in academics, athletics, and the well-being of student athletes. Established more than a century ago, the Pac-12 has earned team sport national championships than any other conference in history. Okay, yes. It's all about the academics for the athletes. Oregon State University, then known as the Oregon Agricultural College, was one of the 4 founding members of the Pac-12 in 1915. Washington State joined the Pac-12 and 1 year later in 1916. For over 100 years, they have dedicated themselves to promoting the conference and its mission. They talk about collegiate athletics underwent a major realignment in 2022 and 23. Between June 2022 and August 23, 10 schools announced their departure from the Pac-12 to join competing conferences in 2024, this season. Each school was recruited away from the Pac-12 by a rival conference as part of a competition amongst members. And they talk about all the schools that left. UCLA, USC, the University of Oregon, the University of Washington joined the Big Ten. Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State, and the University of Utah joined the Big 12. Cal, also known as Berkeley, and Stanford joined the Atlantic Coast Conference. Unlike other conferences, including the Mountain West, the Pac-12's bylaws did not impose exit fees on departing member schools. Sounds like you maybe should have done that, because if there's no way to hold people, look, they just say, fuck it, I'm out. Oh. The 10 departures from the Pac-12 left the conference with multiple pressing issues in late 2023. First, the 2 remaining schools face a prospect of a season without a full schedule of football games for the student athletes and only months to arrange a new one. Oh, sounds like you're kind of boned, and people may offer to help at a premium. Kind of how that works. That's because conference members typically schedule most games against fellow conference members each season and only a few games against non-conference opponents. The departure of the 10 schools with a gap in scheduling competitions for OSU and WSU. Or Wazoo, I think is how they say it, actually. Particularly those schools' programs where schedules often set years in advance. And it's true. Your conference normally has things set out a couple of years in advance at a time. Second, the NCAA bylaws afford the Pac-12 only a 2-year grace period to participate in the FBS without the requisite 8 active member schools. If the Pac-12 couldn't find 6 more schools, it forfeits participation in the top flight of college football, the FBS. The Pac-12 has thus limited time to recruit new members. That sounds like a you problem. Let's see how they can explain this better. They point out the Mountain West is an NCAA Division I conference. Unlike many, it's benefited from recent conference realignment and growth because of open competition. It was formed in 1999 by 8 schools that defected from the Western Athletic Conference, the WAC. In 2005, they successfully recruited TCU away for Conference USA. Between 2011 and 2013, Mountain West successfully recruited more WAC members to join Mountain West. Boise State, Cal State, at Fresno, Hawaii, University of Nevada, and Reno, San Jose State University, and Utah State University. And none of these instances in the Mountain West pay any poaching penalties to conferences when it recruited the members. Well, that's a fucking you problem, I guess. Why? Well, they didn't take it in the ass. Okay, but you are. Mountain West schools have also discussed joining other conferences, including the Pac-12, for years prior to the agreement. San Diego State entertained discussions about joining the Pac-12 or the Big 12 for many years before the agreement was executed. It has been reported the Air Force Academy discussed joining the American Athletic Conference. Other conferences are not subject to any poaching penalties. Do those other conferences have so many games scheduled with them? That might be an issue there. Schools have departed from Mountain West for other conferences in recent years, and none of those instances did the new conference pay Mountain West poaching penalties. Mountain West imposes exit fees on member schools that resign from the Mountain West and seek to join competing conferences. Specifically, the bylaws require departing member schools to pay an amount equal to 3 times the average per member institution conference distribution payment for the year preceding, if notice of departure is provided more than a year in advance. So the member institution conference payout, the distribution, that's your TV rights and your media rights. You get your distribution. Everybody's money gets pulled together. The Mountain West gives everybody a cut. Oh, and Tom, I agree. The Pac-12 knew what was going on, and they plan to use their funding money left over from the departing teams to pay for rebuilding. I agree. This is why I'm saying I'm a little skeptical of the Pac-12's claims. This is no different than, regular business, and like your supplier craps out or your machines died. You have to complete a contract. It's going to cost you a lot to get a crash work done in time. If you provide the notice less than a year in advance, this fee is doubled. The Mountain West Conference is seeking to recover as much as a combined $80 million in exit fees from the 4 schools have announced they will join the Pac-12 in 2026. And then to talk about the scheduling agreement, the 1-year agreement. Following the 10 departures from the Pac-12, and with only months until the season was set to begin, the Pac-12 immediately began exploring options. And they reached a scheduling agreement with Mountain West, providing dates and matchups for Oregon State and Washington State to compete against the schools in 2024 and 2025. The agreement became effective December 1st, 2023. The purpose of the agreement was to arrange a full season of college games for the Pac-12's 2 members to play the Mountain West's 12 member schools. To do so, the parties agreed that Oregon and Washington State would each participate in 6 football games against Mountain West opponents. The Ops, comprised of 3 home games, 3 away games. Mountain West received more than $14 million in compensation from Pac-12 member schools, meaning the 2, for 1 season of football games under the scheduling agreement. That's not bad for the Mountain West. And now that $14 million can get doled out. In exchange for scheduling and related administrative services associated with rearranging the season, the Pac-12 paid Mountain West a one-time fee of $2 million. So not only was it the 14, but also the $2 million. On top of the one-time fee, the Pac-12 member schools also paid the Mountain West over $12 million in participation fees. Under the scheduling agreement, each conference is still responsible for providing referees, replays, and other necessary services for home games hosted by the member schools. Okay? The fees paid by the Pac-12 far exceed the market value of integrating Oregon State and Washington State in the schedule. As multiple outlets reported, the fees were exorbitant. $14 million comes out to $2.3 million per home game, which is above the going rate for a non-conference home game. It might be, but you scheduled these at the last minute. You knew this was all happening, and now you're scrambling at the last minute to fill it. So yeah, you're going to pay a higher premium. That's not really, I don't see the problem here so far. Yeah, it doesn't really, yeah. And Maddie says the Pac-12 being fuck-ups is why the schools left. Yeah, the Pac-12 is known for, has a reputation of being poorly managed, Chad. If you were not aware, you're thinking, wow, these Pac-12 guys sound fucking awful. They are. The Pac-12 has always done something bad. Now, what happens from here? Well, there's still more. Indeed, the per game price the Pac-12 is paying appears to be more than any school will pay for football games this season. Yeah, but that's what happens. You're doing this at the end of the. You're doing this at the last second. And they say a scheduling agreement extracted an extraordinarily high price to play football. Womp womp. Mountain West benefited from Oregon State, Washington State being on the schedule. They admitted that the schools really added a pump to our football strength of schedule, and we look forward to meeting them on the gridiron this year. Nevertheless, it's a Pac-12 that paid the Mountain West for the ability to participate, not the other way around. Because Mountain West felt that it had leverage over the Pac-12, which lacked a full schedule. Well, it does. Now, the Mountain West commissioner is saying, oh, this is going to be great. Well, what do you want him to say? Oh, yeah, we got these desperate broke dicks joining us at the last minute. We're going to rake them over the coals. I mean, of course he's going to say this is good. Now, to be fair, these other schools are pretty good compared to these two. So it's not like Ohio State is having to slum it in the Mid-America Conference or something. These are fairly equivalent schools. They're all pretty much mid-majors at this point. They're all mid. Washington State's nothing to call home about. But beyond the scheduling of this season, the agreement also contemplates the possibility of future transactions, none of which have materialized, and none of which require the inclusion of the penalty provision. Okay. First, the conferences can mutually agree by September 1st of this year to a 1-year extension of the agreement, which would provide a second year of football games at an undetermined price. After the agreement was signed, the conferences discussed the possibility of a 1-year extension, but couldn't reach an agreement. The negotiations broke down when Mountain West demanded $30 million for the Pac-12 for the 2025-2026 season, more than double the already exorbitant price charged by the Pac-12 for the current season. Okay, that's a lot of fucking money. That's a lot of money, chat. I mean, woo! Whoo, Lord. Which makes you wonder, why didn't you ask for that all up front? You probably could have got it. Why are you asking for more later now that they have breathing room? It's just that don't make a whole lot of sense. But yes, they want their shekels. $30 million. If the parties couldn't reach an agreement, the commissioner broke off further discussion, stating, I think we have to move on. It says, second, the scheduling agreement contemplates that conferences will negotiate in good faith the consummation as promptly as reasonably practical of a definitive transaction in which all Mountain West member schools would join the Pac-12 after the conclusion of the 2024-25 season. Now do we have that? Okay, that's not here. I need to grab that, chat. Hold on. I was wondering where that was. I thought I had it. But yes, so the idea was apparently they talked about in this thing, and this is where there was an idea that you guys will join us. But that's because they have no other choice. And ultimately there's money to be had, but the Pac-12 fucked this up. Once again, not a surprise. Not a surprise. So. Well, hold on here. What was I looking for here, chat? Sorry, I lost something. Crap, what did I lose? Sorry, I just lost it. Hold on here. Give me 1 second. All right, we're going to keep moving. And I boomered something. Well, I clicked on the wrong one. Tom saying, yeah, I was waiting for the Pac-12 to succeed and rebuild, but this is some bitch-made shit. Yeah, it is. Just a bit. So it's interesting. They talk about that, isn't it? So the agreement extracted and extort. I'm sorry, we got to that part. Where did it go here? They also point out Section 8 does not involve any commitment to actually enter into a definitive transaction, nor does it identify any terms that would be relevant to reaching the agreement. The agreement to negotiate in good faith regarding the possibility was not a primary purpose of the scheduling agreement or material inducement for entering into the agreement, but you still agreed to it. Now, this is their way of arguing these aren't terms critical to the contract. They're trying to argue that we were going to enter this without it anyway. They're also pointing out that a common term in contract law, actually it's not even a common term, is a foundation of it, besides the manifestation of mutual assent that everybody knows what they're doing, is good faith and fair dealing. If you're not negotiating good faith, how can you really negotiate? And that does become an issue. So they say the parties have had preliminary discussions, but neither side has made a proposal for the DT. As of the time of this complaint, the parties have not entered into any such transaction. They say, unrelated to the scheduling purpose, Mountain West insisted on anti-competitive and unlawful provision. They say specifically they proposed a one-sided poaching penalty that punishes the Pac-12 if it recruits some, but not all, of the Mountain West member schools to join the Pac-12. The penalty provides that if any school accepts an offer from the Pac-12, the Pac-12 should pay liquidated damages in the form of termination fee. There's no provision or penalty if the Mountain West successfully recruits a Pac-12 school. Well, there's only one of those anyway. So, I mean, there's only two of them anyway. So is it really... Like, I think it's funny, though. They're shocked and outraged. It's like, but there's none of you guys there. You guys don't exist. Like, how does this work? How does this work at the end of the day? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. All right, so instead, the imposed penalty does not end at the conclusion of the 2024-25 season. Instead, the penalty extends for an additional 2 years after the agreement's expiration date. So if they only sign for 1 year, it's still there. As a result, the Pac-12 is handcuffed until at least 2027, which is a year after the grace period expires. You knew this when you signed it. In other words, the Pac-12 must rebuild the minimum 8-member schools required while hampered at all times by the penalty. You knew this when you signed it. The fees are severe monetary penalties. If a single school accepts an offer to join the Pac-12 owes $10 million. Each additional school will cost more. 2 schools depart, it's 20.5. At 3 schools, it's 31.5. At 4 schools, it's 43 million. If 5 schools depart, 55 million. By all accounts, the penalty is intended to insulate them from competition and weaken the Pac-12 as a competitor. The commissioners admitted the fees were purposely meant to protect ourselves against what we knew could potentially break us apart. And that's what they want. They either want to get bought out or they want to stifle their competition. You know, if you're going to buy us out, you have to buy all of us out. Because they don't want to have to deal with the mess of a conference that gets torn apart. And it says, one journalist put it, the penalty effectively safeguards Mountain West against poaching, because even though it doesn't rule out agreements between the Pac-12 and some member schools, it puts in huge hurdles. They say with the Pac-12 under considerable pressure, which that's your problem, to secure schedule only months before the season's set to begin, The Mountain West forced the poaching penalty provision on the Pac-12 as a condition of scheduling the deal, even though it bears no relationship to scheduling. You still agreed to it. Now they talk about the schools that join. And they talk about initially there were 4 current members of the Mountain West who joined. They talk about Boise State, Fresno State, Colorado State, and San Diego State. So that same day, Mountain West demanded the Pac-12 pay $43 million. So there you go. It's like, pay up, sucker. And we have those. We're going to go through those in a minute. So we have those in the actual agreements. We'll take a look at those. And they list an aggregate fee of $43 million for the schools. And then days later, Utah State joined. And then they want their $55 million. And they say they argue there's anti-competitive harm. What is that? Well, the penalty puts an exorbitant tax on the recruitment of member schools, each of whom would otherwise be logically candidates to join a reconstituted Pac-12 given their locations. By forcing the Pac-12 to pay tens of millions of dollars, the penalty improperly interferes with the Pac-12's ability to present its most competitive offer to members of the Mountain West. In this way, poaching limits the mobility of Mountain West member schools, placing the Pac-12, one of their most logical options, at a severe disadvantage and suppressing the offers Pac-12 can make to them. Additionally, if enforced, it threatens the Pac-12's ability to compete against the Mountain West and other conferences. Because remember, they have to have 8 schools by the 2026 season. It will lose the ability to compete in FBS, depriving its student athletes the opportunity to compete in the highest tier of college football. But what does it matter? They're going to school to learn, aren't they? Isn't that what matters most, chat? I thought it was about the student athletes learning. Who cares if they get to play foosball? Wait, are you trying to tell me it's more than just sport? It is about sports ball at the end of the day? Interesting. You'd think that, wow, it's like they're admitting to it. Interesting, chat. Just, you wouldn't think of it. It's like, do you really think they'd let you do that? But they really are just about the money. And it's funny the way they write all this. It's, once again, I chuckle at this idea. They think that they don't think anybody notices that they don't give a shit anymore. But that's just what it is. It's just what it is, chat. Necken says the PAC did this to themselves. Yes, they did. Excuse me. Okay. Yes, it's all about the children, y'all. Yes. They say paying $55 million to the Mountain West as a penalty for its 5 schools would significantly deplete the Pac-12's resources to recruit additional schools and rebuild. They say the penalty bears no rational relationship to the purpose of the agreement, which is to arrange football games. It extends beyond the scheduling agreement's term. It does not affect the schedule in any respect, and it does not in any way impact the amount of football played, games scheduled, or anything else relating to the 2024 scheduling of games. Instead, it serves only to increase Mountain West profits by locking up its member schools. Yes, it's enslaving them, chat. And they argue there's no legitimate justification for the penalty. Because it's per se unlawful, it is inherently illegal, and no justifications are available. The analysis should end there. And they say, but even if the rule of reason applied, meaning you could find a reason for it, justifications are pretextual, illusory, and designed by Mountain West to solely conceal its anti-competitive purpose. So they're arguing here that there is no reason for it. These are illegal. There's no reason for them. But they are trying to argue, but even if you could provide a reason, it's an illusory reason. It's a bullshit pretextual reason. Now, they point out in section 7.01 that Mountain West insisted on the penalty because it planned to share confidential information with the Pac-12. But no such confidential information has been shared with the Pac-12, nor is it clear how such information would be relevant to the member schools deciding on how they want to join the Pac-12, or why such information would necessarily justify tens of millions of fees. 7.01 of that agreement also says the penalty is justified because it will share with the Pac-12 unique access to the member institutions. And they point out no unique access is provided to the Pac-12. The Pac-12 had the same access to them after it signed the agreements it did before. Now, that could be an issue. What did they promise? Well, that's a problem. You promised me things you didn't agree to in your contract. Remember, you have to uphold it. You promised me something, you have to deliver it. These schools have been talking about doing this well before the agreement was executed. And the Pac-12 schools competed against games against Mountain West schools for decades prior to the agreement. And they talk about that the $10 million per plus termination fee are fair, reasonable, and appropriate. Approximation of the losses Mountain West may incur as a result of Mountain West losses of any Mountain West school, and the failure to consummate the definitive transaction. But the exit fees Mountain West imposes on its member schools are already more than compensate for any loss that they receive. Kat says, I'm confused about the different amounts. Well, here, well, you know what? We'll skip to that part real quick. Let's see here. So the way it works is these are the fees they agreed to. And the fees were, as they stated, the amount they agreed to here are the fees that they set up. They picked out the amounts here. Let's go back up to this part. Where does it have it listed? So here you go, Kat. I'm confused about the different amounts. These are the amounts they agreed to. The first school is $10 million. If two schools depart, it's 20. But you're talking about the $14 million. So here's what happened. The Pac-12 lost all of its teams, and they had to have football teams scheduled for the 2024 season. So Mountain West said, "We'll do it for you, but it's going to cost you." And Pac-12's like, "Okay, how much?" And the Mountain West Conference like, "Oh, I don't know, $12 million plus an extra $2 million on top." So a total of $14 million. Basically, they scalped the Pac-12 and ripped them off at the last minute, because it's kind of like if you need something done at the last minute, the price gets more and more expensive because the other party holds control. Does that make sense? There was a separate agreement, okay? The separate payments of services. So the idea was the Pac-12 was going to pay $14 million to have games scheduled for this year. The $55 million is if you start stealing teams from the Mountain West Conference, we're going to make you pay penalties for that. So does that make sense, Kat? Does that make sense to you guys here? Okay. Do we got to do the work? We got to do the whiteboard. All right. I guess we'll do that. I guess we'll do this. Here, hold on. All right, we'll do this. Oh, I just knocked a bunch of sprues over. That's not good. So, All right. All right, here we'll do this. All right, Chad, if there's no other way to explain it, okay? There's two separate amounts. There's $14 million. Okay? That is a schedule the teams to fulfill the season for the Pac-12 schools. Because remember, those Pac-12 schools lost all the teams in their conference. So it costs $14 million to do that. Then the $55 million is the penalty for poaching the 5 teams from the Mountain West Conference. Does that make sense? They're two separate amounts. And yes, the total amount would be $69 million. Giggity. Does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense, I don't know how else to explain it. So, does that work? Okay, good. I'm glad ASU is not in the pack. No homo. Yeah, well. Nico, you're saying, how is it the Pac-12? There's only 2 teams. The Big Ten's got more than 10 teams in it. Just they keep the name. They keep the name because the name's familiar. So, that's why they're doing it that way. And certainly this might be a time where it helps there's an infographic, but I don't have it. Hold on here. All right. Why is that not working there? There we go. Take a screenshot and see what's on Sean's tabs. All those tabs are related to this, so nice try. Maddie says the 14 million is a service fee, and then they charge per school used. No. That's not it. No. Okay. There were not enough teams for Oregon State and Washington State to have on their calendar. So their conference is gone. Normally you have interconference play. Well, since they're all gone, they needed teams to fill their schedule. The $14 million came in. And with that, Washington State and Oregon State could fill their 2024 calendar. Because here we'll do. We'll do a better way here. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to Oregon State's football's calendar for 2023. Okay. Now here's who they had. Here's who Oregon State had in 2023. So the 14 million is for the scheduling agreement. So who did Oregon State play in 2023? They played San Jose State. That's a Mountain West team, right? Okay. They played UC Davis. They're not, but this is a Mountain West team, San Diego State. This is a PAC school, Washington State. Right? So you guys see where this is going. They only have so many. Now, the other schools that they have on here, this was a Pac-12 school. This is a Pac-12 school. California was Pac-12. UCLA was Pac-12. Arizona was Pac-12. Colorado was Pac-12. Stanford was Pac-12. Washington was Pac-12. And Oregon was Pac-12. So you see the problem here. These scheduled games for them disappear after a while. Now we'll go to the 2024 schedule. Well, things change up a bit. So Oregon State's 2024 season right here, chat. So they have Idaho State. Idaho State's not in the Pac-12. They have San Diego State, which is Mountain West. Right? Well, they have Oregon, which is Big Ten. They have Purdue. Big Ten. They have Colorado State. Mountain West. They have Nevada. Mountain West. They have UNLV. Mountain West. They have Cal. Cal went to, hold on, where did Cal go? Cal went to, where did Berkeley go? Cal went to the ACC. And these are conferences. Remember, the last time through, a lot of these schools, San Jose State, Mountain West. Air Force, Mountain West. Washington State, PAC. The only other PAC school on here. Boise State, Mountain West. So see, look what happened. Its schedule got destroyed when everybody left, right? And these guys are from some other conference. So if you remove the Mountain West schools from their calendar, like you've got, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You lost. They already had schools assigned to play, probably as part of an agreement, like San Diego State. But they needed. Look at what happened to their schedule. Their conference schedule had a 6-game hole in it, and they had to fill it. That $14 million was the cost of filling your conference schedule on short notice. So as I said, guys, the $14 million was for the last minute filling to schedule teams to fill the season for the remaining Pac-12 schools, for the 2 teams that were left. The $55 million if you try to poach teams to join the Pac-12. So the 14 and the 55 are separate. They are separate things. Yes, Ag, you're correct. It's $14 million to fill the schedule. There's a $2 million fee. Then the 55 is penalties if you try to fuck with our conference. So that is where we are with that. Yeah, Idaho State's Division 2. Yeah. So that's where we are with this. I know, that's why I said it equals 69 at the end of the day. That's why I said giggity. So that's what we're dealing with. There are these different, and I hope you guys understand that now. There's a lot of money involved here in these scheduling conferences. But remember that $14 million gets broken up among the Mountain West schools. Now let's get back to the lawsuit here. And we'll explain things because we're going to read the poaching agreement in a second. So we're almost done, chat. They explain above the bylaws of the Mountain West Conference provide that departing members will pay exit fees to the conference separate and apart from any poaching penalty in a scheduling agreement. The Mountain West bylaws require departing members to pay an amount equal to 3 times the average member conference distribution payment for the preceding year. And they say this prohibitive exit fee is doubled if a member's notice is late. In other words, the Mountain West has already accounted for any losses from the departure of member schools. And they argue Mountain West gets compensated for poaching 2 times over. And that's true. You shouldn't be allowed to double recover like that. But then also you sign the agreement. That's your problem. There's no reason why Mountain West should get paid even more because it's going to be the Big 12. And they say further, the poaching penalty increased the number of schools involved, bears no relationship to any purported failure to consummate the definitive transaction. Remember, the definitive transaction is the complete union of these two conferences where the Pac-12 absorbs the Mountain West Conference. Any failure to consummate such a transaction cannot justify the one-sided penalties. Nor would it make sense for any penalty for a failure to consummate the transaction, which would involve every school, to vary based on the number of schools who actually depart. As from the Mountain West to the Pac-12, the termination fees do. And they argue it's disingenuous. These are exorbitant penalties. And they already show that the harm is being insured via exit fees, or the hypothetical harm that's unrelated to the scheduling agreement. So, yes, college football is beta energy, yes. Well, let's see here. Kat says, what year can they fuck with this after being charged with $55 million? 2027. But remember, the problem is, Kat, in 2027, the Pac-12 was fucked. Because they have 2 years. They have the 2024 and 2025 season, and then the 2025 and 2026 seasons to get caught back up to 8 team members, to get up to an 8-member conference. By the time for the 2026-2027 season, they're toast. So that's the problem here. By the time they can start doing it, the season, it's already too late. And by that point, the NCAA will kick them out of the FBS, and they're no longer going to be considered a major conference anymore. So they can't afford to wait. If they wait too long, then they're fucked. So they have to go. They have to do now. They have to do this now. And they say, indeed, the description of the penalty required is liquidated, reviews the true intent to prevent the Pac-12 from accepting offers from the schools entirely. And they say there is an actual and concrete controversy. And they point out that this gives rise to an actual and concrete controversy, warning declaratory judgment. And this is when they say after the 4 new schools were announced who were threatening to leave, the Mountain West sent a letter to the Pac-12 seeking to enforce it, and they said, you owe us $43 million in aggregate withdrawal fees within 30 days of the date of this letter. In September, the Pac-12 commissioner responded and said, fuck you, we ain't paying because this is unlawful and unenforceable. And they say this inhibits competition by placing exorbitant monetary fees on the Pac-12 for engaging in competition. So they said, fuck you, we're not doing it. Now we get to the causes of action actually here. Count 1's a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act, which is 15 U.S.C. Section 1. And they argue that they're separate entities. There's no complex analysis required to demonstrate the anti-competitive nature. They're direct competitors for member schools. And this is a horizontal agreement between direct competitors that restrains trade. It's a form of market allocation whereby Mountain West has prevented Pac-12 from freely soliciting the Mountain West schools for membership. By insisting on the penalty, Pac-12 has agreed not to compete for particular member schools. Well, Kat, if you're not understanding it, say so, because if you're not, other people aren't as well. The penalty suppresses competition between the PAC and the Mountain West by imposing artificial barriers in the form of a one-sided penalty. It unfairly disadvantages the Pac-12 compared to other schools, and conferences. Nothing in the agreement prevents otherwise penalizes other conferences from soliciting Mountain West schools. Only the Pac-12. This prevents a Pac-12 from being able to offer competitive membership offers. The penalty is a naked horizontal restraint that has no purpose except to stifle competition. It's not an ancillary restraint that is reasonably necessary to achieve the purpose of the agreement. Now, they're pointing out this has no bearing on it. There's no relationship at all, even remotely. And they claim the penalty cannot qualify as ancillary merely because it accompanies the agreement, which is otherwise lawful. And they're pointing out that just because it's attached and it's written into the agreement doesn't mean it's a critical part of the agreement. Okay, I'll get to that super chat in a minute. They talk about this. The penalty does nothing to facilitate the scheduling of football games or to increase the amount of college football played, or to make sure the football is played. That if you're agreeing to schedule us, you have to promise to actually play the games. It's solely designed to stifle competition by imposing an artificial barrier. It's an unreasonable restraint of trade that is unlawful under the rule of reason. And it prevents the Pac-12 from being able to compete for schools. Therefore, it's anti-competitive. And then they talk about count 2. It's a violation of California's Cartwright Act. Yes, named after the famous Cartwright family from Bonanza fame. I'm just kidding. Now, they argue this is a per se unlawful trust that restricts trade in violation of California business codes, and which is known as the Cartwright Act. Nick, it says, can the Pac-12 sue Larry Scott for robbing them and forcing them to do this in the first place? No, they can't. They can't do that. So they hear the Pac-12 is a person for purposes of the Cartwright Act as an association. That's true. Corporations are people. Mountain West is a person for purposes of the Cartwright Act because they're an entity as well. Corporations are people. The poaching penalty is a combination between the PAC and Mountain West. The penalty has no purpose or effect that promotes, encourages, or increases competition. It's an unreasonable restraint of trade. That's unlawful. There's no legitimate pro-competitive justification, and it's entirely anti-competitive. And then they argue it's unfair competition law as well. And they say it's an unlawful business practice because it violates the Sherman Act and the Cartwright Act. So this is a law that kind of follows on to those laws. And they say whether or not in violation of the Sherman Act or the Cartwright Act, otherwise violates as an unfair business practice. And remember, guys, California's laws are like they're an entity unto themselves in every way. They say the Pac-12 has and will continue to suffer competitive harm because of the inability to freely compete with other conferences for schools. And they say that the Pac-12 will suffer severe irreparable harm and will be inhibited from engaging in free competition. And then the invalid contract for unenforceable penalties. They argue the termination fees are unenforceable as a matter of contract law. Now, why are they doing that? Well, they're arguing that these are unenforceable under grounds of public policy. Now, public policy is the issue of there's not a specific rule against it, but public policy, the idea of us as we live in a society, we live in a society, chat. You could almost argue, so to speak. We don't, as a society, want contracts like this from being enforced and going forward. That's the reason why you hear public policy is an issue. So, for example, you can't waive negligence. It goes against public policy because people will act in a negligent manner, and we don't want that as a society. Okay, so we try to have limits on what you can waive, and say public policy, meaning our functioning society, will not tolerate this. We can't. And they say liquidated damages they become enforceable. They bear no reasonable relationship to the range of actual damages the parties could have anticipated would flow from a breach of the obligations. They say, absent a reasonable relationship, a clause purporting to predetermine damages must be construed as a penalty and declared null and void. Further, parties to a contract cannot circumvent the law prohibiting excess liquidated damages by merely stating the amount is not a penalty. And that's the thing. If there are laws on that, you can't just name it another thing and usually get away with it. Yes. We live in a society. Yes. Yes. Anodyne is just like this. We live in a society. Oh. They say to the extent the damages are intended to estimate the amount of damages that would flow from the breach, they don't identify any provision, nor has the Pac-12 breached any commitment. Instead, the true purpose is to merely forestall competition by penalizing the Pac-12. The only identified losses, the loss of the member schools, is failing to consummate the definitive transaction. And they bear no relationship to the fees due under the poaching penalty, which range from $10 million to $137.5. There's no bearable relationship to the loss the Mountain West would incur. Before the agreement was signed, the Mountain West had already ensured it would be more than compensated through the imposition of exit fees. Their bylaws require hefty exit fees that are based on a 3 to 6 times multiple of the average distribution the conference makes to its members. And to say the additional 10 plus termination fees due under the poaching cannot reasonably be related to the damages that would flow from the loss of the member schools, because you're already getting the exit fees. And if you get the exit fees, it would be double recovery, constituting a windfall for the same harm. And as I said, chat, that's double recovery. That's unjust enrichment. You're entitled to be made whole. That's what a damage or penalty is for, is to make you whole if there's a breach. You're not supposed to end up, doubling your money. There has to be a reasonable relationship to it. Termination, they also argue termination fees, bear no relationship to the loss. The loss that Mountain West would occur from not being absorbed. Remember the definitive transaction where the Mountain West and Pac-12 get absorbed. They're arguing, well, since you won't buy us out, this is a problem. Well, that's not fair here, is what Pac-12 is arguing. They argue even the scheduling agreement required the consummation of an agreement, which it unambiguously does not. And that's the argument here is, just because we had an agreement to schedule games does not mean we're agreeing to buy you out. There was the opportunity to discuss a merger, but the merger's not 100% guaranteed. It's not an obligation. They argue, though, any loss to the Mountain West should be a sum certain, not a sliding scale penalty. They argue that these are excessive and unreasonable in light of the gross imbalance of bargaining power. And they say, unlike the Mountain West, which had a full football schedule and felt it had to leverage, The Pac-12 is in critical need of a schedule for its student athletes in the upcoming year, having lost 10 of its 12 members. The Pac-12 had no meaningful alternative but to accede to the Mountain West demands. Well, that's a bit of an issue here. I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens. Cat will get. Cat. I brought this up earlier. Why won't they do it? Because they would lose all the money in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 has its own television network. It has all the monetary rights and media rights it currently has. And Oregon State and Washington State joining the Mountain West would be giving that all up. The people in charge of the Pac-12, the commissioners and the office people, would be giving up all that money. There's a reason why they aren't willing to give up their business, because they want to keep their business. They want to re-expand their business. They want to keep their money. They want to keep their control. They want to keep their power. Joining somebody else, you give up all that money and power. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. Well, you've got, you want to keep your money and your power and your women, you got to fight for it. So that's why they're doing this. They're fighting. They want to retain money. They want to keep their ability to make what they want. If they could have bent Mountain West over, they would have. These aren't good people at the end of the day. So they're arguing the termination fees and the poaching penalty are duplicative of the exit fees already standing to collect. Therefore, they want this all struck it out. They want the poaching penalty declared to be unlawful and unenforceable, as it violates the Sherman Act and the Cartwright Act. It's an unfair business practice in violation of civil or the commercial law. The termination fees are an unenforceable penalty. And because these are, they violate the Sherman Act, the Cartwright Act, and the UCL and contract law, they're null and void. And they want any other just relief deemed proper. So that is where we are with this. Kat says, that makes sense. I mean, it's all about the money. It's all about their money. As I joke up in the top, in parentheses, it's totally not about the money. It's totally about the fucking money. It's totally about the money. So that's why it's very important. That's why it's very, very important. Haschick says Pac-12 is an asshole. Well, there you go. CG says, praise be to God. I just landed a $75K job that's going to provide me with 2 months of work. That gives my kids Christmas and stability. Well, congratulations, man. That's awesome. Awesome fucking news. Congrats to you and your family. That's good fucking news. That's a good way to end the year. And hopefully that's just the start of it. And hopefully that endeavor turns into more work. Hope you like it there. Hope you can work something out with them. If not, just keep the good luck rolling. Keep the good vibes rolling. But congrats. Congrats on being able to take care of all that this year. So congrats to you. Oingo Boingo for $5 says, Jonathan, big fan of the Kill Stream and IBS. Means internet blood sports chat, not irritable bowel syndrome. My brother swore off his OSU fandom, the state went for Obama. Now he doesn't care about college football. Well, yeah, Ohio did go for Obama, so that's Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's one positive. One less Ohio State fan out there. One less Ohio State fan out there. So, yeah, Darts is very cool. Merry Xmas and congrats. Yes. Maddie says the Ohio State University. No, it's just an Ohio State University school. Brent Killar says, to sum up, the Pac-12 got outmaneuvered by Mountain West management and are whining and running of the court. Pretty much. They got bent over a barrel and they weren't ready for it. Now, some of you might say, well, what does the actual agreement say? Well, we have it because it got filed as part of the actual thing. Now, this is a 107-page document. We're not reading all 107 pages. But this is the, you can see privileged and confidential execution version, which means this is the thing that's going to be signed. This is the version signed by the parties and contemplated by the parties. So privileged and confidential. This is the for real version, making sure that whatever might be in other versions is not counted. And it's a scheduling agreement amongst the Mountain West Conference, Pac-12, Oregon State, and Washington State, dated as December 1st, 2023. Now, it's got a couple different parts in it. The football scheduling, the basketball, Schedule 3 is omitted. The Mountain West intellectual property, the Pac-12 intellectual property, the Mountain West member institutions, and the withdrawal fees. And those are important. So we're going to go to Section 7. And this, guys, this is actually a very common way that you will see contracts put together. You'll see different articles put together in here. These are... Now, if you see things here, so for example, the media rights. So they all retain all of their respective right, title, and interest, all currently existing media rights for their football games. The participation fee, though. The Pac-12 shall pay or cause to be paid to the Mountain West a participation fee of $1.5 million for each scheduled Pac-12 home football game that is a football event during the term. The football participation fee shall be due in 2 equal payments of $4.5 million no later than October 31st and December 31st of the calendar year of what the football event is scheduled to occur. So by the end of the year, the Pac-12 owes another $4.5 million. This is how this works, guys. And they say the basketball participation fee. If the parties within 45 days after the effective date agree to a schedule of basketball events, the Pac-12 shall pay or cause to be paid a participation fee of $1 million. $1 million for participation of men's and women's basketball from OSU and Washington State in the Mountain West Conference. It's due no later than January 1st. And no later than January 31st. So there you go. Like, there is all kinds of money. General participation fees. Pac-12 parties shall pay or cause to be paid an additional operational fee of $3 million, which will be payable in 4 equal installments of $750K each on October 15th, December 15th, February 15th, and April 15th. And that's together with the football participation fee and the basketball participation fee. For the avoidance of doubt, the participation fees and termination fees shall only be fees payable by the Pac-12 parties in exchange. So look at this. We're already talking about 4.5. We got 4.5 million. Then we got 1 million. We're up to 5.5 million, chat. Then there's going to be another 3 million. We're up to $8.5 million. Like, think about that. Holy shit. This adds up quick, chat. I mean, we're up to $8.5 million. Okay, hold on, chat. We're going to have to take care of something here. Hold on. There. Sorry, guys. Got rid of the spammer for a minute. Guys, I don't mind you posting shit, but don't be a retard about it. There's nothing wrong with making comments, but like we gotta be a little bit intelligent here. Remember, we don't ban here. That's part of the issue. We don't ban. So look, we're already at $8.5 million, chat. T-Rex says spamming is not free speech, but to me it is. I'm allowing you to get rid of it. So $8.5 million possibly is looking at this. Now, we don't care about the intellectual property. That's not really an issue here. The terminations. So that's not an issue here. Hold on here. Okay, so yeah, anyways, we're going to get to Section 7 here. So this is the withdrawal fee. Sorry, I was trying to find it quicker. This is the withdrawal fee, chat. This is the withdrawal fees. So the PAC-12 shall pay a withdrawal fee in accordance with Schedule 7 for each accepting member. So for the purposes of this, and as you can see here, this racks up really fast. If you don't absorb the conference, if you just take away one team, it's $10 million. If you take away two teams, that becomes 10.5, which means 20.5. If you take away the third team, it becomes 11, which means 31.5. If you take away the fourth team, it becomes 43 million. If you take away the fifth team, it becomes 55 million. All the way up to a theoretical maximum of $137.5 million. What does the privilege of confidential indicate? That this is not meant for public dissemination. Remember, these are not public. Guys, remember, these are not public institutions. These are not public institutions. They're private entities. So they can keep this stuff private and confidential. So it's not meant to be disclosed. But this is where the $55 million comes from, is this schedule right here. This is where it comes from. So right here is where we're at. Right now, we have 5 schools leaving the Mountain West. And so Exhibit A. This is, still in the right one. Okay, define terms. Now, we don't need this part here because we need to get to the actual, sorry here. Where are we? Hold on here. Did I hop into the wrong part? Oh, okay. No, we're still where we need to be. So this is some things here where these parts are confidential. These are specific, like, this is what they're claiming, Mountain West claiming, like, these are strategies of how we're going to do stuff, how your logos get centered on the football field, how the Mountain West people must operate, what logos must be displayed where you go. But yes, 55 million is a huge number. It's a very huge number. They talk about like where you put your logo on your jerseys, how you do everything around in baseball, everywhere, soccer. They talk about how you mark stuff on the field, where it goes in your basketball courts, how you do it with different colors. So like Boise State gets to use their colors, how Colorado College can use their colors, Colorado State can do it this way. It sets out the tones and the rules for everybody. So they talk about this, that they're showing that the intellectual property guidelines for the Pac-12. And like this just shows you how the intellectual property stuff, it's a big fucking deal for these schools. It is a big deal. Intellectual property is huge for these schools. It shows you how their stuff is marked up, how they'll do it, all the different colors, their identity guidelines. They're showing this. This is all part of their agreements. This shows you everything that they're doing. So it just makes you so you understand what they're looking at here and how they're going to do this. This is this is the entirety of their agreements. This is everything that they agreed to. So that's why it may seem kind of ridiculous, but this is what they agreed to at the end of the day. This is how they agreed to deal with everything. So they talk about the parties signing and agreeing to it from Washington State, from Oregon State, the Pac-12 commissioner, the Mountain West commissioner. Now you see all the different sections here you can agree to, all the different issues here. These are all normal. These are all entirely normal. They talk about and actually here they talk about can't send third parties. You're waiving a jury trial. You will not have a jury trial in these matters. So, and they talk about here, this is the thing I wanted to get to. The liquidated damages are not a penalty. Well, that's a problem because they say that like that. That could be a problem for them. They talk about the termination fees. But the bigger thing here is the definitive transaction. The parties will negotiate in good faith the consummation of a transaction which all Mountain West conferences join the Pac-12 as Pac-12 institutions, with no Mountain West exit fee payable by any Mountain West institution member to the Mountain West Conference. So that was a thing. The invitations it made would be effective on the 2025-26 season or the 2026-2027 season. So that is what the Mountain West Conference wanted ultimately, was to combine. Oh, God, you guys can't see it. Sorry. Sorry, chat. When everybody started spamming, I couldn't see. So sorry about that. Okay, so this is the definitive transaction part. This is the combination of the two under Section 8. And then real quick, I don't know if you guys saw that, but this just goes through all the livery and how you do all the intellectual property and branding for these schools. If you guys have never seen these, they're pretty interesting. How the branding is done per organization, where you put the uniforms, where things go on basketball courts. All this stuff is branded out and color-coded, what you're allowed to do. And then for the Pac-12 teams, this is how Washington State does their stuff. And then they talk about here, for example, like Washington State's big thing, like, here are the color codes. If you guys were if you really like them, here are the different color codes you have for each thing. And then they have the Pac-12's identity guide. All these things set right here. This is all about trying to get everything set up. So this contemplates a lot of things. It contemplates a lot of things. Ben says, Sean doesn't read chat when he can't see the screen. I'm literally have you guys on the other one, but I figured you guys were spamming shit. So I wasn't paying attention for a minute. That's why you guys don't, just saying. When I started seeing eggs and everybody started doing eggs, I ignored it. So you shall suffer for being a spammer. Don't spam. This crap is all trademarked as well. Yes, it is. Now, the letter that came through as part of this is from the Mountain West Conference, and this is from the Mountain West Conference, and they come in and they're trying to argue you owe us money. This is their pay up letter. And this is what started it all off. So they argued that, pursuant to our scheduling agreement, if at any time you try to woo our people away, you owe us money. And they said that the president of Colorado State called me and advised me she was calling on behalf of a bunch of different schools, including Colorado State, Boise State, Fresno State, and San Diego State. And she said that they were withdrawing from the Mountain West Conference and have accepted an invitation to join the Pac-12. They said they understand that she had a similar telephone call with the president of the University of Nevada at UNLV, and who is the chairman of the board for Mountain West Conference. And they say, in addition, they all released a press conference announcing their decision to leave. And the Pac-12 also released a press conference, announcing a press release saying they unanimously admitting Colorado State, Boise State, Fresno State, and San Diego State. And they're saying, given the events of September 12th, and they're accepting member institutions as defined by Section 7.1, you owe us $43 million fucking dollars in aggregate withdrawal fees. Pay up, sucker. Very truly yours, Gloria Navarez. And notice what they did immediately. CC the lawyers. CC the lawyers. And then the people at Oregon State, Office of General Counsel, and more lawyers. More lawyers. Washington State's athletic team. And then the Attorney General for Washington State University, which is their general counsel. Yeah. That's how they went about this. They said, pay up. Pay up. Porcelain Thunder says, what was up with all the stupid costumes? It was Keenoween. It was Halloween for them. They promised 31 days of costumes, and they did it. So that's why. Because it's Halloween, Porcelain. Duh. Access to how much in legal fees here? Millions. Millions. Attorneys are going to be eating good. The billable hours will be good. Now, this is the letter back from the Pac-12. 12 days later, the Pac-12 wrote a letter. And this is their fuck you. And this is his way of they're trying to, fuck you, I ain't paying. So he's like, I write in response to your letter dated September 12th. Before addressing the substance, I want to reiterate the Pac-12 continues to value its relationship with the Mountain West Conference. And we have in our place for our student athletes for the current season. Your letter states that we are obligated to pay $43 million. We disagree. We argue that Section 7.1 and 7.2 are unlawful and unenforceable for multiple reasons. Fundamentally, these seek to inhibit competition. And as you know, the Mountain West imposed these penalties over the Pac-12's objection at a time when Pac-12 was desperate to schedule football games for its two remaining members and had little leverage to reject this clear restraint on competition. But that does not make these any less unlawful. So they point out that the Pac-12 and the Mountain West are committed to serving the member schools and the student athletes. This commitment prompted the scheduling agreement, and this caused the Pac-12 to agree to pay above market prices for the games scheduled with the Mountain West Conference. They argue the penalties have no place in such a scheduling agreement and are incompatible with free and fair competition and are unenforceable under the law. For these reasons, we are filing a complaint today to protect our rights, to protect the interests of our student athletes. We look forward to competing on the field this season and in seasons to come. Sincerely, fuck you. We're doing what we want. That's a big fuck you, chat. That's a big fuck you. Kay is saying, so they agreed to the terms and now they say we will just get out of it. Yeah. Well, they're arguing the terms weren't legal, so they need to do that. But yes, the lawyers will be eating good in the neighborhood. So what's going to happen here? I think there's a lot of problems for the Pac-12. They agreed to a lot of this, but I will say, you're the fucking Mountain West Conference. You ain't worth that much fucking money. You got a bunch of mid-range college teams. You aren't the fucking Big Ten. So I think the Mountain West may overextend themselves on this. Green Cap says we used you and got what we wanted, so now fuck off. Yeah. Now the Pac-12 may, I think the Pac-12 is going to forget that they're not the Big Ten on the block anymore. Boise State's a big deal. Yeah, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they were a fucking huge deal, but not anymore. Yes, they basically said I'm signing this under duress. Pretty much, that's what they're arguing. So what's the point of a contract then? Well, the Pac-12 would argue the point of a contract is you don't come into it like a fucking asshole. So you don't make unconscionable terms. You don't make unlawful terms and conditions. So that's the issue. That's going to be the argument there. That's going to be the argument. Now, for the Mountain West side, they're going to say, you agreed to it. You were in a bad spot. That's not our fault. We didn't cause this. You made shitty business decisions or things just didn't work out. Too bad, so fucking sad. Pay up. You know, they both have arguments that are not going to get laughed out of court. I think there's probably going to be a little bit of the courts are probably going to kind of split the baby on this one. I could see it. I hate that blue field with a passion. So do geese. Boise State has a blue AstroTurf, and geese will routinely try to land on it and kill themselves because they, The Pac-10 got cucked. They cucked themselves. So that's what's going to happen there, chat. I don't know what's going to happen with this one. It is very interesting. It's interesting to see what they'll do. And a job well done says this is never a sandwich channel. I know, chat. I lied to you guys. This is never a sandwich channel. Joe says Rob from Law and Lumber and Peter from Lawyer You Know love the sports contract stuff. Yeah, if you guys see him, reach out to him. We can talk about this. It's a fun one. It is a fun one. I'm a goofy goober. Says only the Idaho Vandals could save the Pac-12. Hodor says I'm conflicted. Is the sports ball stuff now for nerds, or are you a jock? Well, I certainly can't give blisteringly timely UFC fight commentary out of nowhere. So it's just a contract at the end of the day. They will agree to an undisclosed settlement and cuck us all. Oh, I think so, because I think they've got problems. The Mountain West has a lot of issues here. I like tight ends. Only the tightest. Like Godolphin's butt. Watertight. All right, chat. That is it for tonight. We've got we've got a week ahead of us where a lot of happenings might be going down. So just be ready. Be ready. There might be a lot of news out of the state of Pennsylvania coming up where the ballots are being counted illegally. We'll find out. We will find out. Lofi says, what do I predict for Nick in 2025? Probably not a lot of good stuff. Nothing good. Nuba says, to change the subject, I love the new Sabaton segment for Flash's intro. I do too. I like the new intro. So... yes, so we do have a week ahead of us, chat, and I will see you guys tomorrow night. We'll see you guys over on Locals. And just remember till next time, chat. Yeah, we do need the body cam footage. Just because you did it does not mean you're guilty. And that even means even if you're some money-grubbing college administrator asshole, even though you're here for the student athletes. Good night, chat, and take care, guys. Oh, why is that working? There we go.
Weapons, blacksmithing, and models of planes, esoteric works, and even some trains. Much merriment had while drinking White Claws, tips on hunting, and even talking the law. Whatever you do, just don't talk to cops. Even when they nab you on illegal stops. Just 'cause you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. But please talk to a local attorney. Was that the fat guy?